Hey guys, I just wanted to talk about something really quick because I've been receiving some comments that have been kind of bothering me a little bit, and it's about the direction at which I do the lore videos, my commentaries and my secret videos and all of that. And the comments are those that have been saying that I don't necessarily talk about like real lore or like the history of things, and instead I speculate too much or I talk about nonsense most of the time. I do talk about nonsense a lot of the time, but I want to touch on those because I think it's very important for us to kind of establish what this channel is all about and what the secret videos is all about and what my commentaries are all about. And look, when it comes down to it, I don't want to just regurgitate lore. I don't want to talk about things that you can easily find on the wiki necessarily, or things that the game already tells you very easily. Like, look, I'm not gonna talk about things that the game has commentary on, you know? Like, I'm not gonna just talk about Alduin and say that he was in the game and he assaulted Helgen, and then you go to Sovngarde and you kill him, and he is in fact the leader of Dragon Priest. Like, these are things that we already know of, and this is probably the type of stuff that I would talk about maybe in the lore play, because it's really just me playing and talking about whatever's happening. But when it comes down to the secrets and the lore and the commentaries, especially the ones that I've been doing lately, it's not as interesting because we already know that shit. So the things that I tend to talk about are going to be things that either are not being told in the game, are extremely obscure, or are extremely speculative. You see, the comments that I've been referring to that I have been receiving lately are, for example, the secrets lore video on Talos. People have been complaining that I made a video on the Arcturian heresy, and they've been saying things like that I'm not really talking about the true lore of Talos, like what actually is, and that the Arcturian legacy heresy is maybe not real, or that it's not the actual true canon of what happened to Talos. And for example, when I talked about Ivanarm, that some people have been commenting that I'm just talking nonsense, that every connection that I'm making from the Ivan to Ivanarm and the gods from Redguard, that it's all just speculative and that has nothing to do with the game, that it's not really in the game. See, that's what I find interesting about Skyrim. Like, if I'm going to talk about the Skeleton Key, for example, I'm not going to talk about the fact that it comes from Nocturnal, and that it unlocks every door, and that without it, Nocturnal cursed the Thieves Guild to have no lock. Like, we all know that shit. Like, that's not the type of thing that I would talk about. Instead, what about that shit that the Skeleton Key unlocks potential? That's fucking insane. What about the fact that it opens metaphysical barriers? That's crazy. Like, that's what's interesting. Not the fact that it opens doors. It's the fact that, imagine Murphy's Law. Everything that could go wrong will. Imagine the opposite of that. Everything that could go right will. Imagine that I have a basketball and there's a hoop over there and I throw my basketball. If there is a possibility that that ball will go into the hoop, it will. Imagine that. Imagine the fact that everything that could go right would go right. What could you do? That's the Skeleton Key. That's what blows my mind. That's what I find interesting. Not the fact that it opens doors. It's the other stuff. The stuff that the game doesn't tell you. That's what's cool. That's what I like to talk about in my videos. And it's not... See, you can complain that it's not really the lore. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and just tell you the story, because that's boring. I mean, we all love the story, but we all know the story. No, let's talk about the other shit. The shit that the game doesn't tell us. The shit that you have to go into the game, maybe open a book, read it, and be like, hey, this reminds me of that other thing. Let's read that other thing. And you start linking shit. That's the cool thing. That's what I find interesting about Skyrim, that there's so many stories that are opposite to each other. Like, you have a story here that conflicts on every respect with this other story. You know, you have one person telling you that it happened this way, and then you have another person telling you that it happened the other way. And then you're like, well, which one is the real one? Like, that's what I find interesting. See, people were complaining that I made a video, 10 things that you probably didn't know about Skyrim girls. And the first one, number 10, said that Ayla and Skjor were in a relationship. And I said that it is believed that they were in a relationship, and there is some there's some facts in the game, some quotes from characters that make you believe that it is possible. And some people were complaining like, hey, the game doesn't tell you that they're in a relationship, like it doesn't tell you specifically or explicitly that they're in a relationship, so you know you're irresponsible is what they were calling me for saying that they were. And it's like, you know, like there's evidence that it might happen, that it might have been the case. And if it were the case, then and this is the thing about Ayla. Ayla is the only character in Skyrim. Well, I'm sorry. The only character in the Companions that allegedly doesn't want to be cured of lycanthropy by the end of the quest line. And how cool, I mean, isn't it interesting that if the relationship with Skjor was actually true, then Skjor would go to the hunting grounds when he died, since he was a lycan. He doesn't go to heaven, he goes to the hunting grounds, the Daedric realm of Hircine, because he made a pact with Hircine. So if she was indeed in love with Skjor, she would want to die a lycan so that she could go to the hunting grounds. Isn't that cool? Like that's an amazing coincidence, isn't it? And the fact that there is evidence that she might have been in love with him, combined with the coincidence that it would be that she might want to go to the hunting grounds just to be with him. It's an amazing thing to talk about. I think it's worth to talk about. It might not be real, of course not. It might just be silly, and I mean, we might be reading we might be getting way ahead of ourselves and we might be overreading this, but it's worth to talk about because that's what's interesting about Skyrim. There's crazy things that might not even be true, but the game kind of hints at them. Like that's what I find interesting. It might not be what everyone finds interesting, but I love to figure that shit out. And this is something that has been going on a while in the Dark Souls community. People that make lore videos for... Oh, that's just... Whatever, don't worry. That's what the Dark Souls community has been doing with Dark Souls for a while. The game doesn't tell you anything in Dark Souls, but people just figure shit out. You know, they do detective work and they try and join clues and figure out the lore for themselves, and then they make videos about it. And I've been trying to do that a little bit with Skyrim because it's so interesting to do that. And, I mean, same thing with the Arcturian heresy, right? I've been getting some flack because people say that the Arcturian legacy is not real. And I got one comment specifically, a long comment, that said that the developer, the guy that writes the lore, I don't know the name of the guy, but he writes the lore for Skyrim and maybe some of the other Scrolls games, and he said that he regretted writing the Arcturian heresy, and that because he regretted writing that it wasn't true, or that I shouldn't take it as lore or as canon. And I think that's kind of silly. Like, there is lore in the game that says the Arcturian heresy is a thing. Like, how am I not supposed to take that into account, you know? Like, I'm not just gonna take the human lore as truth and the elvish lore as false. That's silly. Like, it's just lore. And I'm not just gonna talk about the lore that everyone knows. Everyone knows Talos and he's a god and he's a good guy or whatever. Like, when you have that as a base, okay, you have this Talos person who everyone venerates and you have statues of him everywhere and whatever, blah, 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 and everyone knows him. And then suddenly this book comes along that just shatters everything you believe in. That's fucking interesting. No, let's talk about that. That's fucking awesome. Like, that's what my videos are about. I just want to find crazy shit and just talk about it because that's what I find interesting. So, like, look, if you just want videos like of people just telling you the story, then maybe my channel is not that. I'm sorry. I just want to talk about the cool shit. I don't know. Some of his comments got to me. I'm sorry, guys. I just wanted to rant a little bit. Hi, how are you guys doing? I don't think I even introed this video. I just started talking. I do that. Bye.